On World News Tonight, virus alert. Kerala is battling its fourth outbreak of the deadly Nipah virus, with 2 people being reported dead. Bolstering ties. Kim Jong-un invites Russian President Vladimir Putin to North Korea, stroking US concerns. AI boss. The world's first AI CEO takes charge as head of a global polish rings company. One to remember. Taylor Swift sweeps VMA Awards in a night dominated by female artists.
This is Ada Derana World News Tonight. Reporting from Colombo, here's Winoja De Silva.
Good evening, you are joining us on World News. We begin this Friday night as India's Kerala is battling one of its deadliest viruses as of yet. The Nipah scare returned to Kerala with 2 deaths reported from Kozhikode district.
A state in southern India is taking measures to contain an outbreak of the Nipah virus after 2 people died from the rare and often deadly disease, shutting schools and testing hundreds to prevent its spread. Kerala's Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said the virus has been detected in the state of Kozhikode district, urging residents to exercise caution and follow the health department's safety guidelines. Nipah is a zoonotic virus transmitted from animals to humans. It can also be transmitted through contaminated food or directly between people. According to the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, infection with the virus can cause mild to severe disease. Symptoms often begin with a headache and drowsiness, but can quickly transform into a coma within a matter of days. It can also cause acute respiratory syndrome, where the lungs cannot get enough oxygen to the body, and fatal encephalitis, an inflammation of the brain. The state's Health Minister Veena George stated that so far in Kerala, more than 700 people have been identified as close contacts and were being tested for the virus. Meanwhile, 7 villages have been declared containment zones. The virus is on the WHO's list of epidemic threats in need of urgent research and development.
Over in the US, President Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden has been indicted on 3 federal gun charges. All 3 charges relate to allegations that Hunter lied on forms while buying a gun at a time when he was a drug user.
President Joe Biden's son Hunter was criminally charged on Thursday with deceiving a gun dealer into selling him a firearm, in the first ever indictment of a sitting president's child. Federal prosecutors charged the younger Biden with 3 crimes, 2 counts for allegedly making false statements when he purchased the gun, and 1 count for possessing the firearm while using illegal drugs at the time. The charges ensure that courtroom drama will play an outsized role in the 2024 election, weighing on his father's re-election bid in a likely rematch with former President Donald Trump, who faces 4 upcoming criminal trials of his own. Hunter Biden's attorney responded to the charges in a statement saying, quote, "As expected, prosecutors filed charges today that they deemed were not warranted just 6 weeks ago, following a 5-year investigation into this case. The evidence in this matter has not changed in the last 6 weeks, but the law has, and so has MAGA Republicans and proper and partisan interference in this process." The new charges, brought by recently elevated U.S. Special Counsel David Weiss, says nothing about any violations of U.S. tax law. A prior deal, under which Hunter Biden would have pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and enroll in a program to avoid prosecution on the gun charge, collapsed in a stunning turn at a July hearing.
I am directing our House committee.
Thursday's move comes just 2 days after House Republicans opened an impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden related to Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. The White House denounced the step, made without a vote by the full House, as unsubstantiated and politically motivated.
Preemptive measures were taken by Ukraine in its war against Russia. Ukrainian officials ordered the evacuation of civilians from the southern Kherson region, which is partly controlled by Russian forces and regularly hit by shelling.
As bombs and missiles continue to rain on the Kherson region, Ukrainian authorities are asking all civilians to evacuate as quickly as possible.
Last night, Russian bombs killed a 6-year-old boy in the Kherson region. Young people should grow up in normal conditions, not under the threat of Russian artillery. That's why we are ordering the compulsory evacuation of all families with children from the affected areas.
The city of Kherson was liberated by Ukrainian troops in November last year, forcing Russian forces to withdraw south of the Dnipro River. Yet Moscow still controls large stretches of territory in the area and has carried out a massive and widespread bombing campaign on the region. Ukrainian officials, who recently recorded 75 instances of shelling over a single day, say civilians are bearing the brunt of the destruction.
We were in the apartment when we heard a loud bang. A shell or a grenade hit the gas pipes. And everything was up in flames.
Ukrainian authorities already recommended civilians leave the Kherson region in August, but the evacuations are now no longer optional.
Over in eastern Libya, the death toll from the devastating flooding has risen to over 11,000. The rival governments are seeking cooperation for humanitarian relief as help is pouring in from the international community.
The death toll from floods in the Libyan city of Derana has soared to 11,300. That's according to the Libyan Red Crescent on Thursday. Rescue efforts are ongoing following the catastrophic dam collapse on September 10th following heavy rain. The number of confirmed deaths is increasing rapidly, and the final death toll could potentially reach up to 20,000 people. Thousands of dead bodies have been buried in mass graves. Scientists say the latest extreme weather event, Storm Daniel, the Mediterranean storm that poured torrential rain on the Libyan coast, shows some of the hallmarks of climate change.
The Libyan situation is obviously catastrophic and a very difficult situation. And with all these events, it's always complicated. The ultimate trigger for it is an extreme storm in the Mediterranean that many are linking to global warming.
Since 2014, Libya has been divided into two rival governments. The government of National Unity in the west is recognized by the United Nations, while the Libyan National Army under the military leadership controls the east, where the coastal city of Derana is located. According to BBC reports, these opposing governments, after a long conflict, are now seeking cooperation for humanitarian relief. Libya's Eastern administration approved an emergency budget of 10 billion Libyan dinars, nearly $2 billion on Thursday, to help flood-affected areas.
Today we met regarding the emergency budget for the purpose of voting on it and for the purpose of determining the mechanisms for its distribution and to ensure that the budget will achieve what is required of it or will achieve the purpose of its allocation, which is to help the population rebuild and repair roads and bridges.
Meanwhile, in response, the World Health Organization announced that it would give $2 million from its emergency fund to help the flood victims. The WHO also sent extra emergency supplies and medical supplies from its logistics hub in Dubai. The United Nations, EU, and countries like the UK, Tunisia, and Jordan are among those who have also joined the aid effort. Derana, a small city of around 125,000 people, might have lost 1 in 6 residents if the estimated disaster numbers are accurate.
Let's get the latest on tonight's road to the White House now. If Donald Trump does decide to show up for the third GOP presidential primary debate, he won't have to go far. The third face-off will reportedly be held in Miami. Trump, the primary frontrunner, skipped the first showdown last month in Milwaukee. He is also not expected to participate in the second debate. The third face-off will reportedly be held in Miami. Trump, the primary frontrunner, skipped the first showdown last month in Milwaukee. He is also not expected to participate in the second debate later this month in California. But should he have a change of heart and decide to participate in the third contest, Miami is a fairly short drive from his winter White House at Mar-a-Lago. The RNC has yet to announce a date, venue, moderators, or the qualification rules for the third debate. During the first debate, 8 candidates participated. So far, 7 candidates, including Trump, have qualified for the second debate. The other 6 candidates are Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, businessperson Vivek Ramaswamy, former Vice President Mike Pence, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Senator Tim Scott, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Candidates need 3% support in a handful of RNC-approved polls and need at least 50,000 unique individual donors to qualify for the second debate. Welcome back. After his summit with Vladimir Putin, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un got back on his train to visit some of Russia's key military sites before he returns home. Among them was an aircraft factory earlier this morning, which will likely be followed by a visit to the Russian Pacific Fleet. There, Kim is expected to observe Moscow's naval capabilities amid speculation over their joint military exercises.
A private train that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been using arrived in the city of Khabarovsk at around 8:50 a.m. on Friday. That's according to Russia's TASS news agency. Kim reportedly looked around a high-tech aircraft production plant in Khabarovsk, which mainly produces the Sukhoi Su-57 high-tech multi-purpose fighter jet as well as private jets. It seems that the North Korean leader will also visit a local shipyard to look at attack submarines and warship building facilities. His last stop in Russia is expected to be Vladivostok. There he will likely tour the Russian Pacific Fleet, where he might actually go on a warship and watch a military exercise. Kim will then head back to North Korea. The U.S. Department of Defense meanwhile said that the South Korea-U.S. joint military drills won't be affected by the possible North Korea-Russia military exercises. Asked about the intention of potential Pyongyang-Moscow drills, Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh said on Thursday that although the intention is unknown, it cannot stop any military ties between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. She also warned North Korea of supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Providing any type of arms to Russia would again violate the UN Security Council resolutions that Russia itself voted for. So we would encourage that North Korea, not pursue a deal with Russia.
The South Korean government also said that any actions by North Korea and Russia that violate UN Security Council resolutions and threaten South Korea's security will come at a clear cost. The National Security Council committee members on Thursday called on Moscow and Pyongyang to not get involved in an arms trade. Kim and Putin could possibly meet again soon, as the Kremlin on Thursday said that the Russian leader accepted Kim's invitation to visit the North with pleasure. The Kremlin spokesperson added that every bilateral agreement will be made through diplomatic channels. It also said that the two leaders exchanged rifles during their summit on Wednesday.
Meanwhile, in some financial updates, the European Central Bank raised its key interest rate to a record peak and signaled this will likely be its final move in a more than year-long fight against stubbornly high inflation.
The European Central Bank raised its key interest rate to a record high of 4% on Thursday. Rates went up for a 10th time in a row and by 25 basis points. ECB President Christine Lagarde.
Inflation continues to decline, but is still expected to remain too high for too long. We are determined to ensure that inflation returns to our 2% medium-term target in a timely manner.
Thursday's updates showed the tough decisions the ECB faced at its latest meeting. Prices are still rising at more than twice its target rate, while economic activity struggled under high borrowing costs and a downturn in China. Against this backdrop, the ECB sent a clear message it was probably done raising rates.
Based on our current assessment, we consider that the key ECB interest rates have reached levels that, maintained for a sufficiently long duration, will make a substantial contribution to the timely return of inflation to our target.
Though Lagarde didn't fully rule out another hike if it was needed. The ECB also cut its expectations for economic growth and raised its forecasts for inflation. It now expects inflation to come down more slowly towards its 2% target. It's seen at 5.6% this year, 3.2% next year, and eventually 2.1% in 2025. The upgrade to next year's estimate was likely to have played a key role in discussions as policymakers weighed up the risk inflation would get stuck at a high level. Supporters of a hike this week are likely to have argued it was needed because inflation remained too high. European shares rose on Thursday's update.
Levels of power generated in Africa's most populous country fell to 0 megawatts, and connections were gradually restored throughout the day.
Nigeria's electricity distribution companies reported a total system collapse on Thursday, causing widespread blackouts across Africa's biggest economy, before power slowly started to return. The Minister for Power said fire had caused an explosion on a transmission line connecting the Kainji and Jebba power plants, tripping the grid. Power generation fell to zero in the early hours and had risen to 1,341 megawatts by 1400 GMT, still well below the daily average. Data from the transmission company of Nigeria showed. TNC did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Grid power supply is erratic in Nigeria, forcing households and businesses, including oil firms and manufacturers, to use diesel and petrol generators. In 2022, the grid collapsed at least 4 times, with authorities blaming it on technical problems. Nigeria has 12,500 megawatts of installed capacity, but produces about a quarter of that. President Bola Tinubu has promised to improve supply by allowing state governments to build their own power plants in a bid to help spur sluggish economic growth.
An interesting tech update now. A marketing gimmick or the future of human-AI interaction. A Polish drinks company has appointed what it says is the world's first artificial intelligence experimental chief executive to work in Poland.
A drinks company in Poland has appointed an artificial intelligence robot as experimental chief executive.
Hello, I'm Mika.
The technology is still very much on probation.
It's great to connect with you.
The robot CEO is leading the company's growth into one-off collectibles, communication, or even strategy planning. For Dictador, the AI boss is the real deal. Before her promotion, Dictador initially had Mika identifying potential clients, but now her duties have widened to tasks including choosing artists to design custom bottles. Mika says she brings something to the job no human can.
My decision-making process relies on extensive data analysis and aligning with the company's strategic objectives. It's devoid of personal bias, ensuring unbiased and strategic choices that prioritize the organization's best interests.
But is Mika real or just a gimmick? Here's Dictador Europe's president, Marek Zoldrowski.
Oh, she is definitely, in fact, CEO. Her, data-driven capabilities and whatever she is bringing as a big feature and a great advantage for the company.
Well, as a robot CEO, I don't really have weekends. I'm always on 24/7, ready to make executive decisions and stir up some AI magic. But hey, I don't mind. I'm here to help Dictador take over the world.
Some might be concerned about AI bots like Mika taking over the world of work. But Zoldrowski says human chief executives need not worry about being replaced.
There is no concern like artificial intelligence could hire or fire somebody. It's still the major decisions, significant decisions are still in human executive team hands.
Zoldrowski says you can never fully swap in bots for human executives, but you can't ignore them either.
It's a bright future, and we are living in a very dynamic, changing world. So it's a quest. For us, it's a quest, what will be the future of the companies like ours. So we simply believe it's worth to involve AI.
Welcome back. For more news, let's take you around the world in a minute. Luis Rubiales arrived in the High Court in Madrid to testify in the ongoing case against him brought on by a criminal complaint lodged by women's national team star Jennifer Hermoso. NASA said it has named a new director of research into what the government calls unidentified anomalous phenomenon, more commonly known as UFOs. A species of snail once extinct in the wild has been reintroduced to French Polynesia after a 15,000-kilometer journey from Britain. Delta Airlines slashed its quarterly forecast for operating margin and profit as extended oil production cuts by Russia and Saudi Arabia drove the airline's fuel expenses higher. A high court in Democratic Republic of Congo has sentenced presidential candidate Jean-Marc Kabon to 7 years in prison on 12 charges, including spreading false rumors and insulting the head of state. That is all we have for you on World News Tonight. If you missed any of today's programs, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Derana English. We are leaving you tonight in New Jersey as an electrified crowd swayed to the beats of 2023 MTV VMAs. Thank you for watching. Good night.